welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Kelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 57 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we're discussing chapter 56 of A Game of Thrones. That's Tyrion 7.
We're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully we're going to provide you with some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what's happened and discuss our thoughts on it, provide some background, compare it to the TV show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some reader mail. Be sure to check out the show notes. They've got some additional information which will be handy if you're not reading along. How are you, sir?
I'm solid. Good. I'm doing all right. How about you?
All right, good. I'm doing okay. We're still in coronavirus lockdown. My son is supposed to start soccer tomorrow.
Yeah.
With 2% COVID infection rate in our county. I don't know what to do.
Masks? Are they going to run around in masks?
The kids aren't going to wear masks.
No, I can't imagine.
I think it's crazy. We shouldn't be doing it. You know, our infection rate is like way higher than England. But in England, you're not allowed to have groups of more than 6 people congregating. But I'm going to go to a soccer training tomorrow with like 40 other people.
Yeah, that's more. That would be more.
We can spread out, but...
Yeah, and outdoors, that helps.
Yeah.
Well, in other news, the iPad has not flown off the nightstand again since that previous incident. So,
well, good, but slightly disappointing.
It is. Well, no, it's not. If it did it again, though, at least I could compare it to the last time, see if I could figure out if there's any similarities in the situation, in the environment.
But it's disappointing that your iPad isn't literally cursed and able to fly. That would be more exciting. That would be a sort of Harry Potter thing going on in your bedroom.
Yeah. For you guys, I could definitely see for you all it being more exciting.
Yes, the podcast would be taking quite the turn if you had a flying iPad. Well, let's get on with the show, shall we?
Yeah, let's get on.
Normally at this point we carry on blathering for ages, or we say we've got to get a move on because we've got a ton of stuff. But we're in that kind of middle ground today. Basically, we've talked for a long time before we started.
Yes.
We've kind of exhausted our chit-chat.
We've talked for so long, probably longer than this entire episode will be.
Probably. Our family's going to be mad at us. So we better get down to business just to get back to our lives. Quick recap of what Tyrion was up to last time we saw him. Last we saw Tyrion, he'd escaped the clutches of the Tully sisters, courtesy of Bronn's fighting skills, in the trial by combat. He and Bronn were then tossed out onto the high road and began the very dangerous trek out of the Mountains of the Moon. We learned of Tyrion's marriage as a teen to a prostitute and of his father Tywin's questionable parenting skills, as he let his household guard each have a turn with Tyrion's wife. Finally, Tyrion and Bronn met the Stone Crows clan, who meant to kill Bronn and imprison Tyrion, but ultimately decided to join forces instead at Tyrion's promise of steel weapons and armour beyond their imagination. McKelly, why don't we give them the summary?
I think we can do that. So Tyrion, Bronn, and their new Mountain Clan companions come across a large army at the Crossroads where the High Road meets the King's Road. Chella, of the Blackears clan, estimates about 20,000 in the host, which corroborates the information that Robb got as well in the previous Cat chapter. And they're flying red and gold lion banners. Tyrion assumes that it's his father or his brother Jaime leading this particular army. Tyrion suggests that he and Bronn go down there first and lay the groundwork, but the clan leaders are not fools. They are coming too.
Tyrion wonders what his family will make of the chiefs, but he's relieved that they're moving. The journey down has been punctuated by long meetings with every voice seemed to carry equal weight. Tyrion's still a Lannister and he wants to issue commands, not have a debate. The other clan chiefs avoid Timett of the Burned Men. The Burned Men mortify their flesh to show their prowess, and Timett went further by plucking out one of his own eyes. Even Bronn is cautious around him.
The last part of the High Road is defended and fortified by Lannisters to ensure that the Vale can't contribute to the coming fight, at least not without some issues first. The barricades are commanded by Sir Flemont Brax, who recognizes Tyrion and directs him to the inn at the Crossroads where Tywin is based. Tyrion laughs at the ironic closing of the circle, as the inn is where this ordeal all began.
The clan chiefs are awed by the size of the army as they make their way to the inn. Tyrion sees Masha Heddle, whose name he didn't know but we did, swinging from a gibbet and providing a feast for the crows. When they arrive, stable boys come out to help with the horses, but Shagga thinks they're trying to steal them. Tyrion patiently explains. Passing guards point them to the main common rooms as Tywin's headquarters. Tyrion leaves the rest of the group to eat and drink while he goes in to see his father.
On entering, Tyrion sees his uncle Kevan Lannister sharing an ale with Tyrion's father Tywin. Tywin is rather unemotional at the sight of his long-lost son, and he and Tyrion joust, verbally anyway, for a while. It'd be funny if they had done physical jousting. That would be entertaining. Kevin updates on the state of the war. Edmure Tully's decision to leave small forces in every town has backfired, as Tywin's concerted army has destroyed them all. Jaime has broken through the line at the Golden Tooth and has taken Edmure Tully hostage. Most of the lords of the Riverlands have broken for their homes, and Riverrun is besieged.
Only the Malisters at Seaguard and the Freys at the Twins remain of the major houses of the Riverlands. They reckon that as long as Riverrun falls before the Vale and the North arrive, these last two will also fold. Tyrion reassures them about the Vale. Lysa Arryn will not bestir herself, but he is worried about Ned Stark. Tywin interrupts that they have Ned hostage. Robert is dead, Joffrey king. Tyrion is stunned, so Cersei rules.
That she does. Tywin wants Tyrion to deal with Beric Dondarrion and Thoros of Myr, who continue to harass their rear. Tyrion reluctantly agrees if he can be furnished with 3,000 helms, swords, armor, all that kind of jazz. At this point, the chiefs, led by Shagga, storm in. They'd been taking meat and mead, but had grown uncomfortable due to Tyrion's prolonged absence. Tyrion introduces them, but before he can explain their agreement and his plans to crush the Vale, a messenger arrives announcing that the Northern Army is coming down the King's Road.
Sir Kevan suggests that they wait for them in their current heavily fortified location, but Tywin is impatient to crush Robb and the Northmen, so as to move on to dealing with Stannis Baratheon. Tywin goads the clansmen into joining his cause, and they agree, but they want Tyrion in their number. His life is theirs until they get paid. Tywin is happy to oblige.
Yep. Doesn't seem to put up much of a fight, does he?
Not when it comes to Tyrion, no.
No, I guess not. So, you may recall the name Shagga. Shagga and Khan, who's also mentioned in this chapter. They were in the previous Tyrion chapter. They were part of the Stone Crows group that surrounded Tyrion and Bronn. However, one person from that chapter that isn't in... he's referenced in this chapter, but isn't physically involved, is Gunthor, who is the chief of the Stone Crows. He's off raising other members of the various clans to join Tyrion's growing army.
So the four clans that have come down with them, well, the four clans that are represented are Chella represents the Black Ears, Shagga and Khan for the Stone Crows, Ulf represents the Moon Brothers, and Timett, who we mentioned, is of the Burned Men.
Yeah, and Tyrion blames basically too many cooks in the kitchen as the reason why the clans have not threatened the Vale with more than a raid in a few hundred years, because he gets very annoyed the fact that they sit and argue about everything because everyone's voice is heard. So
I wonder if that's exacerbated by the fact that there are multiple clans here. I mean, obviously it is purely in terms of numbers, but I wonder if individual clans are perhaps less inclined to do that and more inclined to sort of, just have someone in charge.
Yeah.
Who just dictates what they do.
Good point. Because last chapter, Gunthor seemed to be solidly in control of the group. There wasn't an argument about whether or not they should kill Tyrion or listen and agree to his deal. It seemed like Gunthor was pretty much running the show. So yeah, you could be on to something there.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes.
Yeah. You were going to make the point, I think, that is it useful to have the clans fight for Tywin's army? I mean, there's a bunch of them. How many men have they got now? Is it 300?
That's a number that's sticking in my head. I don't remember if that's exactly said or not, but that's the number I was thinking as well.
But 300 people who are used to fighting, that's a significant addition to 20,000. You know, it's not, maybe not make or break, but certainly advantageous. Yeah,
and so Tyrion's plan with this group was to go get all this armor and then go back to the Vale and, as I think he said it, crush the Vale, turn the Vale into smoldering rubble or something, I think was the wording that he was using. But he's not going to get the chance right now because Tywin has basically commandeered Tyrion's army into his own.
Yeah. And do you think Tyrion really wanted to see that plan through? I mean, obviously, now it's been derailed, so we don't quite know. But do you think Tyrion wanted to see that plan through, or was he simply offering them what they wanted to hear to get the escort he needed? Because there is an argument for why he would want it, which is revenge. I mean, he would be very happy to see Lysa Arryn, thrown out the moon door, I'm sure.
Right. And he twice mentions, it might be even 3 times, early on in this chapter, when he's talking about them arguing all the time and not having been able to mount anything more than a raid on the Vale, he says, if he thinks to himself, he plans to change that. So, and then when they come storming in, he thinks he's about to explain to his... No, it's when the messenger comes. When the messenger comes in with the news of the Northern Army coming south, he was about to tell his father of their plan for the Vale, and he never got a chance to. So it seems like he was, at least at the moment, maybe he'll get, back to Casterly Rock or wherever and be like, you know what, just take your stuff and go.
Yeah, and the other thing is, he might want it, but he might have no intention of being part of it.
Yeah.
He fulfills his side of the bargain. He's like, hey, go invade the Vale. They deserve it.
Yeah.
I'll be over here in this brothel.
That's a good point. Yeah, could be.
But what did he ever articulate what his plan was? Because this doesn't get around the fact that you've still got to get through the bloody gate.
Exactly.
Right?
To my memory, he has not explained how in the world he's going to get these clans through the bloody gate. Through the bloody gate.
Which then goes to the whole. I'm thinking this was just his story to get them to take him down the hill.
Yeah, you're right. Could be.
If he genuinely had a plan, Tyrion, he would blather on about it.
Solid point. Yep.
Yeah.
I was wondering if these men might be more useful if they did mount an attack on the Vale, because it would keep the Vale, the Knights of the Vale, occupied, and even if they did decide to change their mind and join the fight, they would be preoccupied by this, harassment or this attack from the clans. Of course, it might also spur them into the Knights of the Vale into action. Maybe as long as they're left doing nothing, they're going to keep doing nothing. So
right. I wonder if you might sort of take a longer term view. See, I think it's important that if they are going to go north and leave this spot, which is, I'm kind of with Kevin a little bit. I'll talk about this a bit more later, but this might be the right thing to do. Just sit tight and let the Northern Army exhaust itself on the way down.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got the inn. It's got the booze. Just wait for them to arrive.
And it's incredibly, it's very fortified, like leagues. The fortifications go for leagues, I think.
Yeah. But also, if you leave, you're going to have to leave a group of people to guard the high road, right? Because, sure, Tyrion's bringing good news. The Arryns are not really interested in getting involved. But like you say, that could change. Right. Their minds could change. Maybe Lysa just really loves Ned, always has. And when she hears that he's been taken hostage, she's like, all right, that's it.
I'm in. I'm all in.
I'm in, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So you got to leave 500 men to guard the pass to make sure no one comes down it?
Or at least slow them down if they do,
Right.
Yeah.
So then you make a good point. If instead you engage them back up the mountains by sending the 300 now heavily armed mountain clans, maybe that's a safer route to... You've convinced me. I thought you were wrong. But maybe the idea is actually teach them a little bit of strategy and tactics and then send them up the hill.
Yeah, because he's asking for 3,000 various things. So, there might be as many as 3,000 people that he plans on.
Once Gunther has gathered the rest of them, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a formidable army. I mean, I don't know if it's formidable enough to get past the Bloody Gate. They might, the Knights of the Vale might just sit there and let them smash themselves to bits on the Bloody Gate.
But is it possible that the mountain clans have the one thing that no other army has, which is the ability to go around?
Yeah, I had that same thought. Yep.
That they climb rocks all the time. This is their life. They clamber up and down the rocks. They said that their horses are as nimble as mountain goats.
Right.
Yeah?
Yep. Yeah. I was thinking that same thing about their horses. Yeah, they might have the one advantage to get around the Bloody Gate that no other army has had.
Right. And the only reason they've never succeeded is because they've never joined forces and been concerted.
Yeah, and
if they
had proper weaponry.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we've sorted that out. That's how that's all going to pan out.
And unfortunately, Tywin has taken the army and is going to go north with them, but,
Well, yeah, but that's the point I'm making. It might have been easier than leaving 500 of his own men to guard the pass to just get rid of the 300 smelly mountain people. Leave them some armor and just say... Of course, could you trust them, though? I mean, they might go, hey, you know what? We've just been left all alone here in the Riverlands.
Right,
let's take a piece of this. See how flat it is? It's weird.
I can see for miles down here. Another thing I found interesting was that Tyrion says there's no bodies, but lots of carnage and carrion crows, and that the village has been destroyed. Basically, the inn itself is intact, but the village around it is all just burnt rubble and char and stuff. Yeah,
it does seem strange. Why do this? I mean,
yeah.
If you own an inn or your villagers, and an army of 20,000 comes along, you try to sell your food to them. And if not, you give your food to them,
Right. If you can't sell it, then you got to give it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. We don't know exactly yet why there's all these carrion crows and stuff, but no bodies. So, my thought was maybe they just slaughtered the villagers when they came in, just destroyed everything. So all the bodies were kind of in one central location, because it wasn't like a battle that was fought.
But maybe some of Tywin's strategy here is to terrorize the Riverlands towns, to weaken morale.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think that's what he has Gregor doing as well right now.
Right.
They're all.
But with Gregor, it seemed to have like a strategic rationale to it.
Originally, yeah, I think it originally did.
Right.
I think right now maybe he's just like go in, harass people, just keep creating chaos.
I mean, it just feels like you're here and you might be here for a while. Why kill the innkeeper? She can cook the food.
Yeah, right. Yeah. She apparently makes a great pint of...
good beer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He mentions how good it was.
I'm missing her already. So I think it was smart of the Lannisters to shore up the end of the high road. They can... Now that they've got the intelligence that the Iron's not coming, leave it pretty much undefended, but they do have to be concerned that she might have a change of heart. Are there any threats that they have to worry about from the south? I mean, there's this small troop of Beric Dondarrions who apparently is not destroyed, as we heard last time. If you remember in the Cat chapter, the rumour was that this force had been destroyed, but apparently they're still harassing the southern flank of Tywin's army.
Yeah, and Tywin specifically mentioned Beric, Dondarrion, and Thoros of Myr. So those two, at least, it seems like they've escaped. Of course, news doesn't seem to always be very accurate that gets out. So,
But I mean, I think you can ignore them if they're 100 men or less if they've lost some.
Right.
I mean, what are they going to do? Like maybe march through and sort of like cut down some bodies? Or,
Yeah.
replace some burned buildings? I mean, they could hardly harass an army of 20,000.
Right. Yeah. Now, as far as other threats, I mean, not really. You've got Renly, if he's in Storm's End or Highgarden, and possibly Stannis coming from Dragonstone, but you would think those two would not be focused on the Lannister army. They'd be more focused on King's Landing.
Possibly, yeah, that's a good point. Of course, winning this war is the ticket to King's Landing.
Yes.
But yeah.
Right.
But I don't think either of them are overwhelmed with resources and large armies, so they probably would find it easier to try and deal with King's Landing than to engage the Lannisters here in the field.
Stannis has a pretty sizable fleet on Dragonstone, but as far as land forces, probably not a ton. Now, if Renly fled with Loras Tyrell, like we were told that he, like, as the rumor went, that Varys was mentioning, he could be rounding up troops from the Reach, which theoretically has one of the biggest armies, that area, because it's fertile and a lot of strongholds down that way.
That creates an interesting sort of political thing as well, because I would think then that if they're being smart, both Tywin and Robb Stark would be making overtures to that group.
Yeah.
Because in many respects, they hold the balance of power. If they fought for the Starks, then they would be a hammer and an anvil on either side of the Lannisters. Yeah,
exactly. Smash them in between.
Whereas if they agree to side with the Lannisters or just stay out of it, then the Lannisters can just deal with the North and then make peace with the South.
Yeah, you're right. That Renly in the Reach. If we don't, all we know is he was heading south. He could have been heading to Storm's End or to Highgarden or some third location. But if that's what he's done, gone to Highgarden to gather up the troops from both Storm's End, from the south and from the Reach. The Stormlands and the Reach. I mean,
so we've talked about the Tyrells before as being, the kind of people who, without knowing much about them, if I were them, I would try to stay out of these things.
Right.
Not get my hands dirty. I am the Lord of Highgarden. Life's pretty good.
Fat and comfy.
Exactly. But Renly Baratheon is no fan of the Lannisters.
No, definitely not.
And if he is in league with Loras Tyrell and Loras has any sway over his father, then that could tip the balance towards the Stark side.
Yeah.
Well, towards the anti-Lannister side, anyway. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But I was gonna ask you. Can I check something?
Yeah.
Renly does not know the secret. He does not know of Joffrey's.
No.
Ned never told him.
Ned never told him. He only told Littlefinger.
Yeah. So he has some animosity towards Joffrey, which we never quite got to the bottom of, but he doesn't know that Joffrey is illegitimate.
He does not know
a Baratheon.
That. Correct. Yeah.
Now, he fled because he didn't want to be there under Cersei's rule. Didn't necessarily mean he was trying to usurp the throne.
Right.
He was just trying to get out of there. If he'd known the secret, he might try to usurp the throne.
Yes. Or he might have fled with the hopes of, well, there's going to be chaos in King's Landing. Maybe I can get enough troops together and put myself on the throne. But we've gotten off topic.
But we all want to.
So one thing about so when Tyrion says, "I wouldn't fret over much about the errands," I wondered, how does he know that? I mean, he's right. Like, at the moment, you never know with Lysa. She's pretty unstable, but Kat seems to agree. You're not going to have to worry about the errands. But he spent most of his time locked up, and it's doubtful that Mord was passing along such info. So I was thinking maybe Bronn overheard the talk while he was in the Eyrie and caught wind of it.
Point. I was thinking that Lysa was pretty blatant with saying she wasn't going to go anywhere. But you're right, Tyrion was not present for much of it, but Bronn absolutely would have been.
Possibly. I don't know how much Lysa was saying these things in mixed company. We know she was saying it to Cat a lot, but it's possible that at least Bronn overheard such talk from other folks in the castle. Otherwise, I figured maybe it's just a guess based on his interactions with Lysa. That
when he first arrived, though, she did say things along the lines of, you've brought trouble to me. I don't want any trouble. I just want, I think she definitely gave the impression. But you're right. I mean,
that was in front of Cat, though.
Not in front of Tyrion.
No, I don't. Not when they were. Not when she and little Robert were. Tyrion was in front of them. She was posturing and saying, "You killed my husband," and all that.
Yeah,
jazz.
You know what? That the TV show, he was present for all that.
Oh, okay.
Very interesting. Yeah, he has sort of like extrapolated what he knows a little bit there.
Yeah,
that might be pedantry.
There was also some more bad intel on Rob's side that was discussed here, because the intel that Rob got was that Tywin and his army had closed off the King's Road and then were marching north to Harrenhal. But the inn at the Crossroads is well north of Harrenhal.
Well, but this could be later.
Yeah, it's just
because I think they do.
It's possible they blocked the road at more than one location.
No, but I think what I'm saying is they hit the King's Road south of Harrenhal.
Yeah,
and then they marched north and took Harrenhal on the way, and then carried on the way to the Crossroads.
Yeah, and they did, because he mentions that Lady Went, who is the Lord of
capitulated.
Harrenhal, yeah, she had for lack of men, she just folded.
Yeah. There's the problem with Harrenhal. Being the biggest castle in Westeros, you need a lot of men to hold.
Yes, you do.
Otherwise, there are undefended bits.
Right.
Yeah. So Tyrion and the clan chiefs ride through the 20,000 soldiers. He could break his promise at this point. He could just say,
absolutely,
arrest these people.
Yeah.
But I think he is, he's a Lannister. They do pay their debts,
Right. And I think he's kind of enjoying having this army of his, although he mentions he's not sure if he's their captive or their commander.
Yes. I think the last bit of this chapter proves, in their eyes, he's still very much their captive.
Yes.
So yes, and he likes the irony of the fact he's come back to the inn at the Crossroads where all this started.
Things don't go very well there. Aside from this situation here, we also had the Nymeria biting Joff. Yeah. And then Tyrion obviously was taken captive here as well. So
it's the center of all things.
Yeah, I guess so. And it didn't end well for Micah there either.
No, nor did it end well for Masha Heddle.
No,
so remember
Masha
Heddle was the proprietress, and she had the horrible red smile from chewing the sour leaf, but she is hung and food for the crows now.
Yeah, and. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, I guess we as we get to know Tywin, we will start to see he's not a man. He's not a sentimental guy, and he's not a guy to be messed with.
Right, but you can be those two things without killing innocent people for no apparent reason, especially innocent people who actually could serve a function.
Yes, absolutely.
Which Masha Heddle definitely could.
Yeah.
So we get a description of Kevan. So that's Tywin's younger brother. He's portly and balding, whereas Tywin himself is cord tight, shaven-headed. He too was going bald, but no half measures for Tywin. He shaved it all off.
Yeah. And Tywin has 4 siblings, or had 4 siblings. Kevan, the brother that's with him here, he's got a sister named Jenna, and then he had 2 younger brothers named Tyget and Jerion, and we'll learn more about them as the story goes on. But as Tyrion mentions here, Kevan is his only surviving brother, so you can infer from that Tyget and Jerion are no longer with us.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
You know what's amazing is I do not remember them at all. I mean, they're being dead already gives me some justification.
Yes, right.
But I don't remember their names at all. It's completely...
They're only, like you just said, they're only mentioned in passing flashbacks and stuff. So,
yeah. And just a reminder of we have talked about Kevan before because his son Lancel was the page to King Robert Baratheon, who conscientiously brought him lots of wine while he hunted the boar.
Yep.
So the family is tight and working on a plan.
Yes, they are. Working pretty well.
So when Tyrion goes in, Tywin doesn't stir. Again, as we mentioned in the recap, Tywin has the capacity to do awful things to Tyrion.
Yes.
And so staring him down is not the worst thing he's ever done to him.
And you may recall back in, I think, as Tyrion 2, when he and Jon are making their way north from Winterfell to the Wall, he tells Jon that when he was a little boy, he would go into the depths of Casterly Rock and light a big bonfire and imagine his father burning in dragon's fire while looking at the bonfire. So you know.
That's really stuck with you, hasn't it? Because you've mentioned that a couple of times since we read that.
Well, that's pretty. That's a very complicated relationship there, I guess. So he says when Tyrion walks in, Kevan is a little bit excited to see him. He's like, Tyrion, we thought you were dead. It's good to see you, kid. And Tywin, he basically says, he looks at him and says, I guess the news of your demise were unfounded. And he's like, no need to get up and embrace me, father.
Yeah, sorry to disappoint you.
Yes. But it was kind of you to go to war for me. And then Tywin kicks into some serious stellar parenting mode here. He starts comparing Tyrion and Jaime. And he says, it was you that started this. Your brother Jaime would have never meekly been captured by a woman. And Tyrion says, that's one way we differ. He's taller than me as well, you may have noticed. So, yeah, jokes are often lost on Tywin. There's like some history about Tywin is like there's kind of anecdotal evidence that Joanna, his wife, has made him laugh 3 times. And that's wow. Astounding knowledge. Like, wow, he must have really loved her. He laughed 3 times at her.
Yeah, and so a suspicion that Tyrion voiced for us that his father didn't really care about him is confirmed. He went to war because the honor of the house was at stake, not for Tyrion's hide. He didn't care about that at all. Right. It was the honor of the house. Tyrion mentions that his men Morrick and Jick were killed by the clans on the way up the mountain. And Tywin assumes he's telling him that because he wants more men. But Tyrion's like, well, actually, I have a few of my own.
I have a few hundred of my own all of a sudden.
So Kevan explains the state of the war. He says that they've taken advantage of Edmure's strategic blunders. The spreading of the men thin to try and protect all of the villages meant that a large army could just steamroll through them all and leave the bigger towns less well defended. And so
Ned saw that coming way back when he was sitting in the Iron Throne. And then Tywin gets into some more parenting don'ts, and he says, your brother Jaime is covering himself with glory. Jaime's host has followed the Vance Piper army to Riverrun and defeated them there, and they've captured Edmure Tully as a hostage. So just keep piling on how much better Jaime is than Tyrion here.
Yeah, so this is in addition to the information we were getting last week from Rob. And now this is another problem for Kat, because now her own brother is now a hostage of the Lannisters, in addition to one of her daughters and her husband.
Yep. So Lannisters 3, the Starks Tully 0.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting how Kat will advise Robb now that, at least the other 2 are in King's Landing. She doesn't know what kind of position they're in, but Edmure is captured by this army that they're supposedly heading south to face. So, how's that going to change their strategy, if any?
Yeah. So Kevan recounts all of the towns that have fallen to them, the Raventree, Stonehenge, Harrenhal, Pink Maiden. The only castles that he doesn't mention really are Darry and Acorn Hall, but since Darry is just south of the Crossroads, it's almost certain that one has fallen too.
Yeah, especially since Raymond Darry was killed in Gregor's ambush, and he brought all his men with him to River Run when Edmure called the banners there. So there probably wasn't many folks to defend Darry. And if you recall Darry, that is where Lady was killed on their way
right.
the king's
because,
party south.
As we said, when you're doing a search party, the one thing you shouldn't do is move, but they did.
Right. They moved from the inn down to Darry. Yep, solid point.
Acorn Hall is just a small castle, probably not strategically significant enough to worry about.
It's actually the seat of the Small Woods, so it is small in multiple ways. Yeah. So that leaves the twins and Seaguard still standing, but those are both well to the north of where most of this action is. They're actually just below the neck, so they're kind of far from the current fighting, which is...
Yeah. They're practically the north. I mean, you could destroy the Riverlands without ever even engaging with those two. I mean,
exactly.
If you wanted all of the Riverlands, sure, you've got to go and take care of that, but unless they come out to fight you, you don't have to bother with them.
Right. Yeah, they're well above... where all this action is right now. And that I was looking at a map of all the places that have fallen and the places that are left, and it made me wonder about Sir Willis Woade. If you recall, he was one of the knights that went with Cat and Sir Roderick and Tyrion on the voyage to the Vale, and his lands are in the Riverlands. They're right on the border with the Crown lands. So maybe, because we've not heard from him since, last we heard was when he had gotten injured, but he made it into the Vale, and we hadn't gotten word that he was killed or that he died or anything, so I assume he survived. So maybe he's gone back to his lands to try and protect them. Or
although it felt like Lysa Arryn was not lending troops to escort people down the mountains, so hard for him to get home.
Yeah, that's a very good point. If he didn't go with them to White Harbor... Maybe he did, and we just haven't heard from him since.
Maybe he did,
yeah.
So Kevan reports that the Robb Stark is at Moat Cailin with a strong host, and Tywin makes the point that sword isn't strong until it's tempered, so he's not worried about Robb yet.
Yeah, it's a solid point. So far all Robb has done is come up with some strategies. We've not seen whether he can actually handle, as Tywin puts it, the butcher's work that a battle actually is.
So Tyrion learns all the things that have happened in King's Landing since he was captured, with amazement, of course.
Yeah.
When last he knew, Robert was still king, but now his own nephew is king, and Cersei rules basically because she's not dealing with any hand of the king as an intermediary. She's in charge basically.
Yeah, and even when, unless it is Tywin, because Tyrion refers to him later as the once and future hand of the king, so maybe he's assuming Tywin's going to be the next hand of the king. Aside from Tywin, you would figure whoever is appointed as hand of the king, Cersei's going to have more influence over Joff anyway, because she's his mom. But that's definitely something that he and Renly agree on. Tywin says, your nephew Joffrey sits the throne and rules, and Tyrion says, Cersei rules. And that was exactly the reason that Renly told Ned, we got to get Joffrey out of here because Cersei's going to end up ruling this if we don't.
Yeah. So Tywin offers Tyrion command of a force to squash the forces that are troubling them from the south, which might be Piper and Vance forces, but definitely the Beric Dondarrion group.
Yeah.
So, he's willing to give him command of something not too terribly important. Maybe he wants him to get killed. Right.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. He's telling him, I'll give you command of a group which will be led under Tywin's name, under the Lannister name. So, but at the same time, he treats him like he's worthless to him almost. So, it's a complicated dynamic there. But yeah, it's so he mentions the Mark Piper and Carol Vance. you may remember them from the Ned chapter where Ned was sitting the Iron Throne and they came and were talking about Sir Gregor raiding. Those were two of the knights. They've apparently obviously left King's Landing but never made it back to their fathers, the other Piper and Vance, the Lords Piper and Vance, who were the ones that were defeated by Jaime. So they must have just thought, okay, well, if that's not happening right now, we're just going to do whatever we can. We're going to, harass them wherever we're able to harass the Lannister forces. So that's what he's referring to there. And then, he also refers to the Beric Dondarrion Thoros of Myr group as well. Yeah.
So the mountain clans get fed up of waiting outside, which I think was a slightly strange decision anyway, because they'd come all that way to make sure that Tyrion didn't double deal. Why would they let him go in and talk to his father alone? Right. So I always thought that was a bit odd.
They didn't even put up a fight.
Yeah, but there was food and drink, so he introduces Bronn, tells him that Bronn's switched sides at least twice since he's known him, so he'd get on just fine with his father, which seems like, I couldn't quite understand exactly what's meant by that, but it's quite the slam.
Yeah, I think what he's referring to is the sack of King's Landing, which I have in the background info coming up here, but, he switched sides on King Aerys, and I think that's what he's referring to. But there was a subtle joke that I didn't pick up like my first 3 times or so through this chapter this week. So Tywin says, "What brings you down from your strongholds, my lords?" And Shagga says, "Horses."
Oh, that Shagga. He's a one.
Yeah, literal. He's quite the literal one, that Shagga.
So, do we think strategically Tywin is making the right decision here, or should he listen to Kevan Lannister? Because we know what Robb's planning.
Right.
Robb is at least partially planning to send only his foot soldiers down the King's Road and to send his mounted across the Green Fork to engage with Jaime.
Yep.
If Tywin heads north here to engage with Robb's army, he cannot cross the Green Fork.
Right. He has to go all the way around one or two ways.
Exactly. He is right now at one crossing of the Green Fork. The next crossing north is 500 miles away.
That's a long way.
If he marches 250 miles and then discovers that it's not the army he thought he was coming to fight, he's then 250 miles from the nearest crossing to get back to help Jaime.
Yep.
So Kevan says, why not let them march the 500 miles and then engage with us? We'll be here drinking the beer.
Exactly. To me, we're already dug in. We're already fortified. We've got our army, all ready. They've got to come to us. They've got to get through us. And we've got to... Right there, we got an exit. We can cross the Green Fork if we need to. Right there. Yeah, I think it's Tywin's hubris. I think he's taking Robb lightly, and he wants to wrap this up. He wants to take care of him quickly, and so he's taking the bait, and he's doing exactly what Robb hoped he'd do.
He does mention he wants to start dealing with Stannis Baratheon because he thinks, obviously, Stannis. Well, no, Stannis. We don't know whether Stannis knows. We assume he does know because he was in league with Jon Arryn. But Stannis has a legitimate claim to the throne, so he wants him silenced as quickly as possible before word of his claim can spread throughout the kingdom.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know what Stannis is up to. We don't know what Stannis knows. But based on his statement that he wants to end this fight with the Northern Army quickly so he can turn his attention to Stannis, sounds like maybe Stannis is up to something. Or, like you said, he wants to squash Stannis before there can be any spread of the word.
So in some respects here, this if Robb is following through on the plan that he described, then he might be strategically making the right call here, because he's going to pin Tywin's forces on the wrong side of the Green Fork. Meanwhile, he's going to send a group big enough to defeat Jaime. So things might come down to a race against time. If Jaime can win Riverrun and be inside Riverrun before Robb arrives,
he's screwed. Robb is screwed. Yeah,
the Lannisters have won.
Yep.
But if Robb can get there first and somehow destroy and break the siege of Riverrun, then there's a chance for a comeback here by the Riverlands and the North.
Yeah, it really is. It's a race Storming River Run isn't easy because it's fairly well fortified.
It's a castle, yeah.
And it's got the,
and of course, Jaime doesn't know necessarily that it's a race against time.
Right. Yes.
He might be settling in for a 3-month siege,
Exactly.
not knowing that there's a dangerous force headed his way.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
So yes, the clans all agree that they will fight with Tywin. Basically, Tywin goads them by saying, "This is where the real fighting is going to happen. You can have your armor and go off and hide in the hills if you want, or you can come and fight with us against dangerous ice men."
Yes.
And of course, the clan chiefs can't resist this, so they all agree.
Yeah.
And it's less helmets to give out if they all die.
True. Yeah, and you don't have any more promises to uphold, I guess. Gunther might get back with all these guys, and they'll be like, "Sorry." But Chella of the Black-Ears says that we'll go to war with you, Tywin, but only if your son Tyrion goes too, because his promises has bought our allegiance, and until that debt is paid, we're going to keep him in our sights. He's our captive. And I thought, they're not really in a position to be demanding that right now,
Right, but it just so happens that they played to what Tywin wanted. He's delighted that his useless son is going to be dragged into a war that he caused.
Yeah, right. And if Tyrion were to die in battle, I don't know how broken up Tywin would be. I mean, one, it's kind of an honorable death, He died in battle, and he doesn't have to deal with them anymore.
Especially for a half man, a half man died in battle. He was particularly brave for going into battle.
Right. Yes.
We gave him no choice. So, what background do we want to talk about?
So, I wanted to talk a little bit about Tywin's background.
We finally met Tywin Lannister.
Yes.
How exciting!
We've been hearing about him for 50-some chapters here.
Funnily enough, actually, I thought he didn't come into the story as early as this. My recollection of reading the books was he didn't come into the books until the second book. I was kind of surprised we got to him.
You're like, whoa, who's this guy?
Yeah, here he is.
Okay, so when Tywin was 10, he was sent to King's Landing to serve as a royal page and cupbearer at the court of King Aegon V Targaryen, who we lovingly know as Egg from the Dunk and Egg series. It was during his time at court that he became friends with then Prince Aerys Targaryen, as well as Steffon Baratheon, who was the heir to Storm's End and the future father of the late King Robert and his brothers Stannis and Renly. Tywin's cousin Joanna Lannister, who is his future wife, also served at the royal court as a companion and lady-in-waiting to Princess Rhaella Targaryen, the mother of Dany, Viserys, and Rhaegar. We're going to skip over the handling of House Rayne of Castamere and the Tarbecks of Tarbeck Hall. That info is revealed in the books, and we don't want to ruin that for anyone. But for those who know what I'm talking about, it's an extreme example of why Tywin is not a man to be messed with.
I think you might have given quite a lot away there.
So Tywin was chosen by his friend, now King Aerys, to be his hand of the king after the death of Jaehaerys II, which is not Jaehaerys the Conciliator. This is a later King Jaehaerys. Tywin became the youngest hand of the king in history at age 20. And things went along well for a while. Tywin paid the crown's debts to the Iron Bank with Lannister gold, which is something he's done again more recently. And the realm prospered. He repealed Aegon V's reforms that helped small folks, so the lords and merchants were a big fan of Tywin's. However, eventually Aerys became jealous of the admiration and respect that was given to Tywin, and he began some petty behavior toward him, such as refusing to allow Rhaegar to marry Cersei, as he considered Tywin a servant of his, and he refused Jaime to be Rhaegar's squire. But during Robert's rebellion, Tywin then refused to take a side. It wasn't until 2 weeks after Robert killed Rhaegar on the Trident that Tywin showed up at the gates of King's Landing with 12,000 Westermen, swearing that he was there to help his old friend King Aerys. However, upon entering the city, his men began to slaughter any and all men and rape the women. And this event eventually became known as the Sack of King's Landing, which is what I said earlier, I'm pretty sure that's what Tyrion was referencing when he said he and Bronn would get along well because of their allegiance switching. Yeah,
there's some interesting points in that. I hadn't thought of the fact that Cersei would have been very eligible as a wife of Rhaegar.
Yeah. She grew up thinking she was going to marry Rhaegar.
Right, yeah. And so his falling out with the king is all that stopped that. I wonder if she would have been happy. I mean, obviously, she likes Jaime, but maybe Rhaegar.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think Rhaegar and Robert were kind of similar people at that when they were young.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah, I remember Ned wondered if Rhaegar would have done some of the things that Ned did.
Would have been a better king.
I mean, that Robert did. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the comparison with the TV show, I actually tipped my hand a little bit on this last week because I talked about some of the war exposition was put in the mouth of Tyrion, and sure enough, it showed up in the mouth of Tywin, and sure enough, it showed up in the book in this chapter. The things that I was saying, Tywin said that. Well, yeah, he did. He said it in the book in this chapter. So the TV show was just a little bit ahead of me. I didn't realize. But yeah, all of this is pretty much captured. There's a few less clans, a few less clan chiefs.
Right, sure.
Tyrion's interaction with Kevan and Tywin is very similar. Yeah, I mean, it's not much deviation here.
Yeah, it wouldn't need to deviate too much. It's basically just a conversation in a room, you know?
Yeah, we did not see Masha Heddle's body.
That's probably for the best.
That one. Yeah, probably. So, pedantry, the one thing I was going to say was, I wonder about Chella being able to identify the fact there were 20,000 men without getting past the Lannister blockade at the end of the high road, because by my calculations, it's quite a ways from that point to the inn, like 20 plus miles. So I don't think she could know that.
I see what you're saying.
Maybe the distance is not quite right, but that's how I saw it. Or maybe they foolishly set the barricade up down the road where you could just go around it. But I would think you would put it where there are steep sides on either side.
Yeah, that would make sense. Maybe while she was in the Mountains of the Moon, she was high enough up that she could look over the distance, and because she said by the fires, I'm guessing around 20,000.
Yeah. But I'm surprised she wouldn't get caught or spotted by the Lannister men manning the barricade if she got close enough to see the fires.
Yeah, solid point.
Anyway, so news and notes. Yes, apologies for that little spoiler I gave. Because what I said was, one thing I said was that Rob said that Jaime was on his way to besiege River Run, but in the show Tywin said that River Run was besieged.
Okay,
but that's exactly what happened in the book too.
just needed one more chapter.
Exactly. Sorry about
that. Other news and notes. This has nothing to do with our podcast, but in podcast news, my nephew was a guest on a podcast, the King and the Sting podcast, episode 85. So that's it's a pair of comedians run that podcast. Theo Vaughn and Brendan Shaw.
A little bit like ours, you mean?
Yes, two pair of comedians. Yes. So I will say it's a very different podcast than ours. It's I listened to that episode. It's a little heavier on the vulgar language and stuff, so if you are offended by such things, we try to keep it clean here.
Yeah. Although we do think you are reading a pretty foul book.
I was going to say that, yeah. If you're, I'd be surprised if you're too offended by vulgar language as you are reading this particular series. But my nephew, he runs an internet show called All Gas No Breaks, and it's really funny, really good stuff. If you're ever interested in such things, check it out.
It's called King and the Sting.
King and the Sting is the podcast. My nephew's show is called All Gas No Breaks, and their Instagram account has 1.5 million followers, whereas That's about 1.5 million more than we have. So
they probably try a bit harder on Instagram than we do.
The percentage would be way too small for me to figure out what percentage ours is of theirs.
All right, so let's conclude for today. So it's hard to tell what Tywin thinks of Tyrion. He definitely went to war because of what happened to Tyrion, but he seems very happy to throw him into mortal danger.
Yeah, right. And I just said a few minutes ago, if he throws him in mortal danger that also happens to be a battle and he dies, it's almost a little bit like a win-win for Tywin, Like, he doesn't seem to be very fond of Tyrion. He seems to be almost an embarrassment to him. And then he would die doing something honorable, like fighting in a battle for his family.
But he must have, I mean, Tywin's a sharp cookie.
Yeah.
He's not an idiot. He's not a Robert Baratheon.
Right.
He must have some respect for Tyrion's capabilities, even if they are often hidden behind layers of drink and carousing.
Yes. Yeah, he asked him to take a command. Now, Tyrion was mocking him. He said, "Oh, wow, you trust me with a whole 20 to 50 men. Wow, I'm so touched that you think so highly of me, father." But, I mean, he could have just said, "Just go back to Castle Rock and stay out of trouble, man."
Yeah.
So, yeah. But the Westermen seem to have the Riverlands pretty well covered. Yeah. So, I don't know. Can the Northern Army even help at this point?
Yeah, the only hope I think for the Northern Army is what we were just talking about, that if Robb can get to River Run before it falls, and take Jaime by surprise, that they might have a reversal there. And if they're sufficiently successful in that fight, and they've sent a big enough force to tie up Tyrion on the Tywin on the King's Road, then they could sweep around from north or south, or both even. Yeah. Split up their forces and come at them from both directions.
Right. And it is, I guess it's fortuitous that the two remaining Riverlands houses, the two houses that owe fealty to the Tullys, are both in the north. So they might have access to them to, increase both their numbers on their way south.
But I mean, it's not purely fortuitous. They're the last places you'd go because they're closest to your enemy.
Yes, it is right. It's not fortuitous. Yeah. It just happened to work out really well in this situation. Yeah. Of course, Edmure is captured. So
that's the kicker here. That's the kicker. Yeah. So now Kat's family are in real peril. So
yeah, she's getting it from both sides. Her married into family here and her Tully family. Yeah, we've got Edmure's captured. Most of the strongholds in the Riverlands have been taken and or burned out. The men are scattered all over the Riverlands, and River Run's under siege, so it's not painting a great picture for things in the Riverlands right now.
But Tywin is falling into Robb's trap. If Robb is going to do what he said he was going to do last time, Tywin is falling for it. Is it enough? Can it help? How will Robb do in battle? To be seen, to be found out.
Yes, right. And what is Stannis up to? What is Tywin so anxious to turn his attentions to Stannis for? Is it just because he's trying to squash these rumors, this, what Ned's accusation that Stannis is really the heir, or is Stannis starting to make some sort of move?
I think it's definitely the former, and if the latter happens to be true, we need to stop that as well.
Yeah, right.
But I think he wants to get there quickly because he wants to try and keep this genie in the bottle.
Yep.
Because it's the kind of taint that would always follow the king around. If it gets out, then his enemies will always refer to it.
Yep. The bastard king, or yeah,
exactly.
He's, well, not even the bastard, the incest king.
Yeah. And it's not even the incest on the royal line. The royal side is the Baratheon side.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. All right.
As always, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhall@gmail.com. You could follow us on Twitter at @ghostharrenhall. We are on Facebook, Instagram. Are you listening? Instagram,
yeah.
And now on YouTube.
And, if you like what we're doing, if you wouldn't mind going out and rating and reviewing us on iTunes or anywhere you can leave rates and reviews. We would greatly appreciate that, and it would really help us out. Just slide that finger to 5 stars and you're done. And of course, word of mouth is always a great way to help us grow the show as well, so appreciate it.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.